There is a significant update on top Miami Hurricanes running back target Derrek Cooper. The Chaminade Madonna Blue Chipper has locked in a new announcement date of July 20th. Miami is among the 5 finalists, and here's what it's going to take to get it done.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and post-game host on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On this loaded Locked On Canes, we're going to talk about where Miami stands with Derrek Cooper because we have the new announcement date locked in. What's it going to take to get this done? We'll talk about the next top recruiting targets for the Hurricanes, including a couple of safeties from the Atlanta area. We'll talk progress with Carson Beck in off-season workouts. And we'll talk about EA College Football 25 because we have the foremost expert with us. He's an expert on a lot of things. Very good friend of the show, Gio Million. Gio, first and foremost, I know Miami has missed out on some important targets in recent days and weeks. I would argue the most important recruiting target left is 5-star Chaminade Madonna standout athlete / running back Derrek Cooper. Miami's been recruiting him for years. He's got his top 5 locked in. Miami is in there. What are you hearing on that July 20th now announcement date? And why do you think that was pushed back 8 days in the first place?
Well, there was a consideration that maybe he would extend things into the fall. Mostly that was a push from Texas trying to get that done. I know Miami continued battling there. They felt good about their positioning throughout the summer. I know everyone has questions because of all the different teams involved, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, your usual suspects in the NIL era. But I've had a pick placed in for Miami since November. I'm rolling with it. I haven't backed off of it. Miami knows how important he is to this recruiting class, especially from a perception-wise type of thing. Like, you have to land the absolute top guy in your backyard. I think they get it done. I actually like it even more that he'll announce next week rather than in the fall because since the fall, you got game day visits and this and that, even though I still think there's a possibility for some of that stuff when we get to fall. But the way recruiting is set up now with this NIL era and then now revenue share, seems like less and less guys are flipping off of their commitments from schools. You may be lucky if you get 1 or 2 flips at the end of your recruiting cycle.
Yeah, when you mentioned, the finalists for Derrek Cooper, you mentioned most of them there. The top 5 is Miami, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas. The other one, though, is Florida State. I don't think you mentioned them. Does Florida State have a chance to pull off a shocker in 8 days or 10 days?
I don't think so.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. But let's talk about Derrek Cooper, the player, though, Gio. And Miami has Javion Mallory already locked in as the first of hopefully 2 running backs in this class. If Miami is able to land Cooper, how do he and Mallory complement each other? And what would Miami be getting in a potential Derrek Cooper commitment?
Well, with Derrek Cooper, you're talking about just the athletic profile in itself. He's about 6'1". I think verified he was like 208 or 209, so he's almost 210 pounds already. Runs a laser 4.50 40-yard dash. Guys naturally get faster year over year, especially when you get to a college strength and conditioning program too. So you're talking about a guy who could possibly be running a 4.4 40-yard dash at 6'1", 220 pounds if he decides to come to Miami. So a lot to like there. I think his upside's even higher as like a sort of rover, like a linebacker safety at the next level. But there is preference there to play offense. I know there was discussion about playing both ways. Miami's one of few schools that's actually entertained that idea. So that's also coming into play as well. Also, Javian Mallory, in terms of how he complements with Derrek Cooper. So more of that bruising type of back. Little bit of deceptive speed there as well. I will mention, though, I know everyone remembers the push from Alabama.
Yeah.
Clemson still is recruiting him as well. So Miami has to continue playing defense there.
Dang, that is a good thing to consider as we're still about 5 months, 4.5 months away from National Signing Day. We're joined here by Gio Million. So Gio, again, I mentioned at the top that after Miami had this incredibly strong finish to the month of June in recruiting, in July, Hurricanes have missed out on some of the targets that they were going after. I mean, there's many reasons why, Calvin Russell chose to go to Syracuse. I was hoping that while I was on an airplane yesterday, maybe Miami would get lucky with Lamar Brown, 5-star defensive tackle. He chose to go to LSU. Have any of these, quote unquote misses over the last couple of weeks, have any of these really surprised you, or did most of these just end up being, you kind of saw the writing on the wall before the decisions were made?
Lamar Brown didn't surprise me. Usually those kids in that Louisiana area, they tend to stay home. I figured it'd be LSU or Texas A&M. I know there was some small level of confidence on Miami's end right after his official visit, but I just never saw that tipping Miami's way. In terms of the other guys, Calvin Russell, just overall really weird recruitment. The other thing that I'll mention in there, I've said this myself. I know there's some people in the building that feel this way too. I don't think he's a 5-star receiver. I know someone who's covered the South Florida area for over 50 years, has seen everyone from Ted Hendricks on down to Dalvin Cook.
I think I may know who you're talking about when you put the 50-year timeline in there.
He doesn't believe that Russell's a 5-star either. So I think he's a really good talent. I think his ranking has a lot to do with projection. I know there's some people in the building that they didn't feel the juice was worth the squeeze to overextend themselves in terms of compensation package as well. And that's totally fine. I'm actually with them on that. Obviously, they still got to land one more receiver in the class. They're hardly after Tristan Keys. So we'll see how that continues to play out. But in terms of the other guys out there, Devin Jackson and James Johnson would be the two I would say that surprised me. There was a lot of confidence surrounding the James Johnson recruitment. Coming into the final week, you hear all this buzz of Texas, of Georgia, even Miami still being somewhat in play there. That actually surprised me. I know people bring up, oh, well, he's originally from Fort Myers. Oh, and he was from New Jersey before that. Irregardless of all of that, there was a ton of confidence from people around Miami that they would get that one done. So that was a little bit shocking. I know they still plan to recruit him long-term, but it's just unfortunate. And then the reason why I bring up Devin Jackson, I never had a pick in for Miami, but you look at the scenario there, and let's put it this way. Will Harris, Miami's new safeties coach, had Devin Jackson committed to Florida for close to almost a year. Then comes to the University of Miami football program as their new safeties coach. Everyone knows that at this point. Devin Jackson comes to visit in the spring twice. Decommits from Florida, stops communicating with Florida for close to 2 months and well into the summer. Visits Oregon, LSU, Nebraska, Miami. Miami knew that they were in a battle with Oregon. That's no surprise there. But then the late visit to Florida, just out of the blue after he had not talked with them for 2 months, and then communication steeply declined with Jackson leading into his announcement week. I think it's a terrible loss, honestly, because that was one that you should be able to close, especially if you had that guy committed at the previous school you were at. So definitely some cause for concern there in terms of safety. I think they've done well at all the other spots, honestly. Just safety and defensive tackle, those two have to continue improving.
Well, we'll talk about safety when we come back because we have announcements coming up over the next couple of days with a couple that Miami are recruiting. Tyreek Green is set to announce on Saturday. Blake Stewart is set to announce on Sunday. We'll get Gio's take. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. If you ever wish managing your money felt easier, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning big purchases, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. I've found that out using Monarch for the past several months. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Folks, I've been using Monarch to help cut down on these extra expenses. Too many streaming services. You don't realize how many you're locked into until Monarch lets you know. Folks, being able to set up a plan and organize with my partner and realize how much I'm overspending on things like dining out and food delivery, Monarch can literally change your life for the better. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I will have a new episode coming up later on this evening, talking about the ACC representatives coming up at Media Days in a couple weeks. I will be there covering Miami's day in Charlotte, so we'll have so much to talk about later on today. But in the meantime, we have Gio Million with us here on Locked On Canes. All right, so Gio, you mentioned, unfortunately, missing out on safety Devin Jackson, who ends up committing to Oregon a couple of weeks back. Miami still has irons in the fire for a couple of very good safeties from the Atlanta area. Tyreek Green, who it feels to me like a Georgia lean. He's going to be announcing on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Blake Stewart is another top safety announcing. He has felt to many like a Clemson lean for several weeks, if not months, but I know Miami is heavily recruiting both. What are you hearing on those two? And can Miami get some good news within the next 48 hours?
Well, you would hope so that they could at least split one of those two, corralling them into their recruiting class. They definitely need it after the miss on Devin Jackson. When it comes to Tyreek Green, so I mentioned on August 27th on my private board, this is before it even became national news. I mentioned to some people that I got tipped off on some news that Miami was much more in it for Tyreek Green than initially thought, because most people, the figure on it is that Georgia would likely land him, that, he would stay home and whatnot. Well, fast forward from early June into July now, things have shifted a lot, and that has quite a bit to do with the amount of defensive backs that Georgia has in the recruiting class. They have 3 safeties in their class. They have quite a few corners as well, and they actually landed a surprise commit in Chase Calicut over Texas. He's a Texas guy. Texas was kind of surprised by that. Texas will continue battling there for him. I do think it's Georgia for Green. I know Miami's given him a lot to consider. I lean more on the side that Miami has a better chance with Blake Stewart heading into this weekend. And it's been a bit of a seesaw recruitment where Miami's felt really good. Clemson has felt really good at different points. I know Miami's trying to drive home the private school factor. He plays at a private school in the state of Georgia, so that's something that they're trying to sell to the parents on that point as well, just the continuation of that type of education. And the other thing I'll mention, there was a time dating back towards spring football where most around the program were really confident that he could have committed leading into the spring game as well. So it was very close to happening there. So it's not like Miami's been entirely out of this race, but if I had to pinpoint it down, I think they have a better chance with Blake Stewart heading into this weekend. Now, if they don't land any of those two, things change a lot. I will mention, though, because I'm sure you've talked about it at this point, Donno, but Kenton Dobson, the class of 2027 commit who's basically 5-star or 4-star, depending on which recruiting site you look at. In terms of his whole process, yes, things are going to be sped up because he's going to reclassify. It's actually going to happen from what I understand.
Yeah, we mentioned like 3 days ago it was 90%. That's probably ramped up to 95 to 99% over the past couple
so
days.
that's going to happen. He's academically cleared with everything to proceed with that. Some people have asked, oh, well, is he going to stick with Miami or whatnot? I know the family are big Hurricane fans. His late mother, Miami was her favorite school as well. His father frequents a lot of Miami Hurricanes Facebook pages as well. So if you're on the fan pages on there, you may come across his post. But I think he projects a lot as a safety at the next level. We'll see. I know it's not the silver lining people want, but he is a tremendous talent. If you could pair him with a guy like Blake Stewart, that would be ideal. I know they continue they plan to continue recruiting Devin Jackson, but we'll see.
Right. No, that's good info right there. Now let's shift our info from class of 2026 to the guys that are in the program right now. Okay. Because we're, a few weeks away from training camp opening up. Usually that's at the end of July. In the meantime, we've had off-season workouts going on. And I think people, Gio, are starving for Carson Beck intel. I've heard he's been doing really well. Now, I was across the pond for the last couple of months, so you've been a little closer to things down here in South Florida. I just got back to South Florida last night. What are we hearing on Carson Beck and if he's instilling some extra confidence? Because for all of spring, he was unable to throw, but for the past couple of months, he's been throwing, Gio.
Yeah, well, first on the date for camp, I have overheard it could be July 28th would be the first day to open up camp, which would be a little different from previous years. But I want to remind people that Miami opens the season on August 31st, so should be expected that they open up a little bit earlier to get all that preparation time. Now, in terms of Carson Beck, though, I've heard the throwing has been very good. Actually, there's no concerns or hitches with the arm at this point, which is great. It's been progressive work, and what I mean by that, they've gradually worked him up towards throwing deeper and farther and with more strength and power. He could throw a touch. Everyone knows that. He's pretty accurate. But yes, prognosis is good so far. I want to see what it looks like in camp, but the feedback that I got is that the arm is okay, which I'm sure Hurricane fans will have a sigh of relief when it comes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else outside of Carson Beck that you've been hearing really good, maybe even surprisingly good feedback on in off-season workouts?
I would say Alex Bowman, the other tight end alongside Elijah Lofton. I think those two are going to be a really good tandem this year. Every time I've asked about Bowman, it's been a very much similar comment every time. And that is consistency when it comes to him. That it's just a day in, day out type of guy. They think he's going to be like that during the season too. That because sometimes some players may have a good game or two and then go into a funk. He's a guy that shows up every game. The other ones that I'll mention, still heard a lot of good things about Malachi Toney. I wouldn't even put it off the table that he could potentially start in game one. I was questionable about it at first because they brought in Tony Johnson from Cincinnati, but I think it's very much on the table that he could start game one, which would be an incredible feat. JoJo Trader continues progressing well. They think that he could be a number one wide receiver in this offense. As long as he stays healthy, we'll see. They're really excited about Joshua Moore. CJ Daniels brings a lot of veteran leadership. Keelan Marion as well. I think people are sleeping on him. Some people in the building think that he has more ability as a receiver than what's perceived from people that have watched his tape at BYU. Offensive line-wise, two guys that I get a lot of good feedback, young guys, Juan Minaya and Tommy Kinsler. Those two are guys that are really stepping up and developing within the program. They may not start this year, but guys to watch out for in the future that could definitely factor in. And in terms of current guys that are on that starting O-line, Francis Mauigoa, of course, he's in phenomenal shape. And Inez Cooper as well. Markel Bell's completely reshaped his body too. And speaking about physique as well, Mark Fletcher in the best shape of his entire career. People forget that he's never had a true off season at Miami. He just had the fall of his freshman year, and that was it. So definitely good stuff going on there. And defensively, off the hoof, I'd say Marquise Lightfoot and Armando Blunt have continued to get a lot of rave reviews around the program. Ruben Bain, they expect him to be the Bain that people expect him to be, at least the fans. But he still had a good year last year. I think people just forget that he was hurt. He missed games. He missed time. That's just the reality of the situation. Justin Scott, they are expecting him to continue to make the progress that he did from spring and carry it into fall. Body type wise, he's there now. He was a little bit light last year, but now he's ready. He's full go. David Blay, they're really excited about as a nose tackle type. You look at his body type, he's just wide body. Linebacker wise, Mohamed Toure, been described as a leader type veteran guy in the room. Everything is so far so good health wise. We'll see when we get into fall camp, but everything's been really good in terms of off-season workouts. And I've continued to hear a lot of good things about Xavier Lucas and in particular Ethan O'Connor. He's had a really good off-season from what I've been told.
That's great to hear. And as far as this weekend coming up, my first order of business is going to be to finally pick up EA College Football 26. And I know Gio's been playing it for, well, when was the early release, Gio? The 7th, I think? So you've been playing it several days already.
7th. It was on Monday. I've played here, and the most I've played is like Monday and Wednesday was the most I've been able to play. I like it. Some things I think some people won't enjoy about it. They need to patch the defensive back play. Defensive backs are they're just late reactions. They're not batting balls. Even if you try to swat or deflect a pass, if you're in the vicinity of the pass, it's just not happening. It's just really inconsistent with that. I think the run game's really good in the game. Passing's a little different this year. The trajectories are a bit different. I like it personally. And last thing I'll say, you got to find a way to get pressure on the quarterback. I think it's a little more realistic in that aspect.
Well, I got a specific Miami-related question for the game when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We got Gio Million with us. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're talking all things Miami Hurricanes with Gio Million, a staple member of the South Florida media, covering all things Miami Hurricanes and all the other local teams. But I know Gio's heart is very much orange and green. So, Gio, I know that in order to be in the video game, everyone, coaches and players, they have to opt in. Like they have to, I guess, fill out some paperwork. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised because of his personality, but Mario Cristobal, his likeness is not in the game. Shannon Dawson, offensive coordinator, he is not in the game. Corey Heatherman is. So Miami's got their DC in the game, but not their head coach or their offensive coordinator. Now, was that a conscious decision Cristobal made not to be in the game? Maybe he lost the paperwork under his desk. Like, why do you think he's not in there?
I think some coaches just don't care.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. Colorado's head coach, Deion Sanders, he didn't opt into the game either. I know a few other coaches that didn't opt in. A bunch of them did, though. So I guess it just varies on how coaches view it and whatnot. Mario is he's one of those type of guys that he just doesn't really care for that stuff. I'm surprised by Shannon Dawson, though, because Shannon Dawson seems a little more on the hip side. So I was a little shocked by that. In terms of missing players from the game, not too many notable guys that have done stuff in previous seasons. I know some people are upset that Malachi Toney is not in the game yet. It's unfortunate. I know. I agree with people. If you're wondering when that could happen, players obviously have to opt in. Luke Nickel is not even in the game yet either. It's mostly freshman guys that are not in the game. And I think like two sophomores are missing. Like Chance Robinson's not in there and someone else. think it's Chase Smith is missing from the game, something like that. I have it over on my X. I'll share it in the comment section here after the show. But in terms of when to expect an update to the game, when you could potentially see these other guys added into the roster, sometime in the middle of August, I believe, if I go by the timeline of last year, and I know they're planning a big update for the game, sometime between August 15th to like 28th or somewhere around there that you'll see an update.
That's good to know. And I do remember last year, I don't think Miami ever got 100% of their players in the game, and not every. It was our center last year, Zach Carpenter. He never opted. He didn't want to be in the game for whatever reason. But I do remember throughout the course of the updates, a lot of the guys who weren't in the game, who wanted to be in the game, were eventually updated into it. So, like Gio said, I expect more of our guys to get in before the process is over. Well, we appreciate your time as always, Gio Million. If you want to plug, obviously your socials, people can find you at Geo Million on X. When's the next time you're going to be broadcasting? When can people see you or hear you on Spaces?
Yeah, so everyone can find me on X at Gio Million. Also, you can find us on YouTube. Me and Amon Richards, we have a weekly show on the Miami Hurricanes. We cover recruiting, we cover the team, multiple different things that are going on with the program. We'll be live this weekend, but you can find it on YouTube at whowantssmoke_Inc. And thank you as always for having me on, Donno.
It's our pleasure, man. Gio Million, make sure you follow him. Make sure you follow us at Alex Donno on X. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to Locked On Canes. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, YouTube, of course, wherever you get your pods. And we will talk to you again maybe later on today, because I know our guy, Brian Smith, wanted to have me on Locked On Seminoles to talk Miami, Florida State stuff. So maybe we'll send that link out for you guys. We'll talk to you later on another episode of Locked On Canes. We're part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.